In my restless dreams, I thank my patrons. A new artist, Derpin Goose, Luigi88, McTivil, Mode Select Start, Nerd Stop, Noah, Shadow Silent Gargoyle, Void Scent, and all the Cozy Tier subscribers. Thank you. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dylan with a Blankie channel, where it's a grim, foggy Halloween. Talk about one of the best psychological horror games ever created. Silent Hill 2 is a game that easily falls into my top 10 best games of all time. It has a lot going great for it. So, as you can imagine, when I heard a remake was happening, I was skeptical to say the least. Still though, I bit the bullet, and I bought the $70 game, thank you patrons, and I'll say I'm pleasantly surprised with what I was given. Now, being a huge fanboy of the original game, which I played when I was like 10, I wanted to talk more deeply about this remake in comparison with the original. What I liked in the original game, and what I wanted improved versus what Team Bloober has given us recently. So I took it upon myself to complete the original title and also the remake so I can have a better understanding of both overall. The first Silent Hill 2 came out in 2001, shortly after 9/11, so it was a pretty crazy time when it came out. Not only was it right after 9/11, it was also during the year of video games. Which video games? Final Fantasy X, Metal Gear Solid 2, Devil May Cry, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Golden Sun, the Oracle games, Jak and Daxter, Pikmin, Sonic Adventure 2, and that's not even half of it. Needless to say, it was a good year for video games. 23 years after the original release, it was remade from the ground up for the modern generation. The question on everyone's mind, is it good? But the question further than is it good is, does it even compare to the original? I hope I can answer that question as I played through and attempted to discover everything and get every ending in this remake. I will be comparing a lot of the original to this game, and I think that's fair since they literally named it Silent Hill 2. It's not Silent Hill 2 Remake or Silent Hill 2.2, it is just the same name. So I will draw similarities at every turn, but I do so simply because this game was a masterpiece. While the gameplay was crude, the imagery, the sound, and the lore were perfect. So I think it's about time we grab our nail boards, rev up those steel pipes, because it's time to whack and stomp at Silent Hill 2 Remake. The remake released on October 8th, 2024. Unless you're one of those guys and bought the deluxe edition for 2 days early access. Good job, you shill. I'm just gonna say early access for more money should be a crime. But at least you get a Pyramid Head pizza box mask. Immediately upon booting up the game, you're given the biggest jump scare. And it's tough to top that. I could feel the franchise dying to pachinko machines. You might believe that we just start the game and it's good to go, but you're dead wrong. There is a daunting amount of accessibility options for this game. If you went through every one, it would take at least an hour. It's still very nice. There's a colorblind mode, text on screen, brightness changes, good quality of life settings. But even without all of that, you have this screen to start a new game. Now, it very clearly says at the top that the best way to play this is with the default settings. Having just come off the original, I tried my best to pick the settings that emulated the original game, and I will advise you not to do this. They mean every word on that screen, and changing these settings to the retro style on your first play can ruin the experience. Combat puzzles have the same settings as the original, just with different names of light, standard, and hard. The interface preset is very important here. Modern makes it so you can see tutorials, item icons, ammo on screen, subtitles, loading screen hints, as well as quick time combat events, which are always just mash X. Default turns off that QTE icon and load hints. And finally, Retro just says, fuck you, figure it out. So obviously I set everything to hard and chose Retro. I didn't expect a huge difference, but I was very wrong. You could also choose your DLC mask, you shill. And finally, the graphic mode. You have two, being the standard and 90s washed out version. The game starts with those iconic scenes. Now, first things first, it's gorgeous. Fucking phenomenal graphics. It loses that otherworld feel off rip. The graphics are great. The voice acting is stellar. And the music is exactly the same, but it seems very out of place here. The detail is taken to extreme levels to the point you can see the ring mark on James' hand in the mirror, showing he's removed his wedding ring recently. Also, it's a dark game. And the 90s filter doesn't help. It has like this dark vignette around the screen that makes it impossible to see anything in your peripherals, so I could not play with it on. I also changed my reticle to blue because why wouldn't you do that? The first area is bar for bar the same as the original game. Even trying to leave will get you an achievement referencing the text from the original. And this is a first detail that you'll see. James doesn't remark to himself in this game. Like, he very rarely expresses thoughts as he did in the original. In the original game, if you try to leave, he'll say to himself, there's no point in turning back. But here, you just get an achievement for it. And that happens quite often. You travel that path to Silent Hill, and all you hear as you travel is the sound of pebbles falling. I did have one playthrough where I heard a dog barking one time, but that was about it. Well, with the save point is here, and it's an upgrade as the shot of James' face here is him standing in real time on the save screen. I was excited to see what they would do with this, but nothing really comes of it besides one little detail near the end. Entering the graveyard, we meet Angela Orozco yet again. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play both scenes next to each other and show you the difference.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry. I was just...
Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
Excuse me,
I'm sorry. I
No,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
Yeah, I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road. You can't miss it.
Yeah, I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road. You can't miss it.
Thanks.
But... I think you should stay away. This town, there's something wrong with it. And it's not just the fog, either.
Is it dangerous?
Maybe. It's kind of hard to explain, but...
I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just... I guess I don't really care if it's dangerous or not.
Thanks.
But
Yes?
I think you'd better stay away. This town, there's something wrong with it. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Is it dangerous?
maybe. And it's not just the fog either.
Okay,
It's...
I got it. I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just... I guess I really don't care if it's dangerous or not.
So you see what I mean? It seems more realistic than fantastical like it did before. The quality is still superb though, and you can exhaust your dialogue with characters by repeatedly speaking to them, where in the original you just got repeat dialogue if you kept trying to talk to them.
Finding...
James even gives me a cheeky look as I exhaust the last talkable option.
Yeah, I should probably get going.
We pass through the same gate and see the same set pieces of the original, but the main change is when we hit a locked door. This requires us to go to a nearby auto shop and find a key to open the door ahead. This is kind of a little tutorial to show us that we can go off the beaten path, into buildings, and search stuff. Using the key we find in the auto shop, we can finally make our way into Silent Hill. As As we approach the town, we get a cutscene that gives us the dreaded map of Silent Hill. I was so afraid when I picked this up, thinking it would be exactly the same as the original game with no minimap, and that's exactly how it is. However, it works well in this title, as you don't have the load times and black screens. So in the original game, when you would open up the map screen, you would see the map, everything would freeze. And then when you would take it off, there would be a little bit of buffer as the screen was black, so you could get hit by an enemy or move in a random direction, and it would cost you a lot of healing items. In this game, you can open the map, and while the map is open, you are still in real time and can be attacked, but you can put the map away really fast and then keep going on about your business. I'm glad they kept the map like the original game, because it just works well. It's similar to how the bad combat contributed to the OG. Oh, and another neat thing. You might have seen in the old games footage that flower shop you see at the very beginning of Silent Hill when you go in. You can actually enter it! This blew my mind at first, and it really shouldn't. I should have expected it. AAA games, they're like so iffy now. My expectations are lower than those holes James has to jump into. We can explore this place and find a note. You'll notice that I hold it up and read it in the bare cursive writing. That's because to read notes in regular legible print, you need to press triangle, and I couldn't figure that out. Had I picked the normal settings, there would be a button HUD that tells me, hey asshole, push triangle to read note. So for the foreseeable future, I raw dog the cursive writing with my eyes. A little more in, and we see the dreaded blood trail that leads to our first enemy. This time, though, it doesn't bring us to that tunnel. In fact, I passed right by that tunnel and didn't even notice it with how distracted I was with every other detail. If you follow the trail, it leads to an alleyway, into a backyard, to a garage. Here, we can crawl through a hole, yet another thing we can do in this game, and you gotta be on the lookout for any of these, passable holes to go through. What I like about this is these pathways solve the yellow paint issue easily. All they did was toss some white cloth around it, which really fits the aesthetic of the game. Much more subtle, but still effective and natural. No yellow paint here! Inside, I wander around interacting with everything until I find some cupboards open. Coming from the OG, I expected bottles to be out in the open, but they aren't most of the time. A lot of items are found inside drawers and cupboards, and thank goodness I found this out now, or I would have missed a lot of items. And I still did miss a lot of items because I don't have the HUD on. Had I left the settings on default, you would see a dot on screen showing things nearby that can be picked up or opened. In the room ahead, we find our old friend the radio buzzing on the chair.
Stay back.
So we arm ourselves with a nearby trusty piece of wood with nails, and I figure out combat. It's fairly simple: press right trigger to swing, and circle plus a direction to backstep or dodge to the side. This is critical for playing on hard mode, as enemies take for fucking ever to kill. And as you will see later, they are beasts. For now though, the figures aren't a big deal. They are largely the same. They throw up and can dash at you, but are very easy to defeat. In the next room, we get a dirty syringe, which is a full heal. Obviously, the first thing I would have used it for is injecting myself for health. Pressing triangle uses a drink, which is a partial heal, and holding triangle uses the syringe. I played the whole first playthrough not knowing the syringe needed the triangle button held, so I would just pause the game to use them. I really got as close to the retro gameplay as I fucking could. With our melee weapon and healing items, as well as enemies being everywhere now, we are free to explore this side of Silent Hill. Like with the flower shop earlier, there are a lot of alleyways, stores, and houses to explore. You can spend a long time just going window to window and busting them open to see if you can go inside. The way forward is also expanded on. Instead of finding a key on a body to go to the apartments, you have to go to Bar Neely's, find a series of items to repair the jukebox, get a key. This has you visit a record store, another bar, and some smaller apartments finding these items. Already a massive expansion. After you spend your time finding healing items in nearby establishments, you can solve that jukebox in the bar.
the lake. We spent the whole day there. Just the two of us staring at the water.
Now, in this scene, it plays the song that Mary would play on the piano, and just the raw emotion you can see in the characters is something they all have that's great. These become very cinematic cutscenes, where in the original they were a bit goofy and emotionless. I think that overall helped the game. So like that otherworldly feel I was talking about is kind of missing. This game is more realistic and grounded. We gain the key to enter the rear of the bar, where we get jump scared by the yellow paint. Oh no, it's made its way here! You can move these tables to climb and enter holes near the ceiling. This takes us back into the alley, where we can find the key to Woodgate Apartments. Okay, it's the same as the original, just a lot more steps to get here. Picking this bad boy up gets you jumped by a ton of the figures. Run past them and into the streets of Silent Hill to find the fog swirling around in a powerful gust. Then it's time to head to the apartments. The apartments have gotten a huge facelift as well as things moved around. The coin puzzle is now immediately in the office ahead instead of at the very end. No coins though, so I'm sure we have to go find those. The only place to go now is the second floor, where a door is open with a light shining through it. Inside is the flashlight, still on a mannequin with Mary's dress, and also the enemy mannequin that appears behind it. Now, let's take a minute to talk about the mannequins in this game.
Perfect!
They're fucking insane. These guys fight like they just came off a session of Sparking Zero. On hard mode, they can nearly one-shot you, and the way they operate is just incredibly broken. I would like to remind you that I am playing on hard mode, so the damage values are much higher, but even at standard difficulty, these things are a pain in the ass. This mannequin is about the only one that announces its presence, so dealing with this one is a matter of swinging and dodging. Great. The other ones, however, hide from you and don't activate your radio until they begin to move. The original had them operate in the same way, but man, you take some bullshit hits from these enemies throughout the entire game as they hide around a corner, under tables, or even in a room you passed you didn't peek into. One sneak attack on hard leaves you limping, and even if you know where they are and attack them, they can gain iframes if you attack a little too late, nullifying the hit and letting them punish you. They do a falcon punch, which means do a side dodge, or a swing, which means backstep, so you need to pay attention to these guys and react like you're in a fighting game. It's crazy. Even on my many repeat playthroughs, I got hit at least a dozen times by these mannequins for any of the above reasons, and they stay the most difficult enemy to fight for the entirety of the remake. I also need to point out that we have no room for dodging at all, like almost ever in this game, so you can easily get cornered and kicked to death by these things. This is only the first one, and it kicked my ass many times over before I learned all its nuanced attacks. In the original game, mannequins were more docile, like they could just bicycle kick you, but they didn't dash across the room and hit you. So it was easy enough to avoid them, and if you did fight them, they were probably the easiest enemy in the game to fight. That's all gone though. Yeah, mannequins fucking suck. The room here has a key in it that we can use to gain more access to the apartments. Laura kicks our hand like in the original, but it also holds a new purpose since she opens a few previously locked doors as she runs away, meaning we gain new access. There's much more to explore compared to the original. You can access more apartments, pick up new bits of information, while the original stuff is still around. You even see Pyramid Head at the end of that hallway. The gun is still in a cart in a bullet-filled room, but it takes longer to get your hands on it, and resources are so much more scarce. Like every pickup, you'll get 2 or 3 bullets from each one. If you're lucky, you'll get 4 or 5. The corpse in front of the TV, as well as the screamer here, but strangely, James makes no remarks upon seeing it, and the corpse is covered up, probably to disguise that it's supposed to look like James, which is much harder to identify in the original game. Now, like I said earlier, James just doesn't comment on much in this game, which is a shame. I'd really like to hear his input when he reaches into a fucking toilet, or when he tries to leave Silent Hill. It's about him, and I want to hear his thoughts on things, which we don't get. Once I start making progress, I try to give the old avoid strategy a try, and by that I mean dodging enemies and just trying to progress, and I am punished greatly for this. If you ever have 2 enemy types in a room, kiss your health goodbye as one pukes on you from a distance while the other punches the shit out of your gut. It's almost necessary to kill every enemy if you don't know exactly where to go next. It's plain to see that this game is way more combat oriented. Now, I haven't mentioned it, but James's head tilt for items exists in this game, but it's nowhere near as reliable. So in the original game, James could only walk in a direction with the fixed camera behind him, and he would twist his head to look at items that are in the background, and this was the perfect way to find items. However, in this game, when you turn the camera, James will turn his head with the camera, making it much less reliable as you spin around and you can't tell whether he's turning with the camera or turning to look at an item. This is especially prevalent in the heat of battle. Whether it's natural movement or he's looking towards an item, you'll never know. This simply means you can't be in combat while looking for progression. This part had me stumped for a while as there's a wardrobe you need to push, but I didn't know it could be pushed since I hadn't done that yet. If I had the reticle on, it would have shown me I can push it though. A lot of my current issues are solved by just having these standard settings that tell me where things are. This is the last time I'll mention it. I just really want to drive home that on a first playthrough, having these settings on is a good thing and doesn't make you any less of a gamer. Except myself. I'm a piece of shit and I'm very bad at video games. Make sure to comment that down below, please. After moving the wardrobe, we have a fun little puzzle requiring the use of a flashlight to open a safe, granting us the man coin at this time. Now we can go and meet Eddie.
Who's there?
It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't do it, I swear.
Hey, are you okay?
I didn't do anything. He was like that when I got here.
He... Oh, you mean the man back there? In the kitchen?
I didn't do it. I swear I didn't kill him.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm not saying that you did. Look, my name is James. James Sunderland.
I think Team Bloober did a much better job depicting Eddie as an overweight slob in this game. This is a shining example of a good appearance rework.
I'm not even from this town.
I don't know. The majesty of the original's weirdness of them talking is kind of gone. So we've traded Eddie looking more the part, but not feeling the part, you know? And I can get into that more later when we see more scenes of him that I'll compare to the original. Out the window here, we can get the snake coin, which is still in an empty pool of enemies. And then we can get the dreaded shoot coin. Now, all we need to do is navigate through this gauntlet of mannequins. This section had me tearing my hair out, as mannequins jumped me left and right, kicking my ass every step of the way as I discovered a new mannequin in the next room that would kill me. This part alone proved to me that fighting 2 enemies is not worth it. Just dash, run, and figure out the next move. Team Bloober gets all my praise for the one simple change here of putting that canned juice right next to the trash chute. Bravo, you guys. The original game had so many people give up in the apartments trying to find out how to get that last coin, and it was a pain in the ass. The juice was super far away. You would have to go on the opposite side of the apartments, pick up the canned juice. People would pick it up and not know what to do with it because they'd be like, canned juice must be a healing item. Even if they analyzed it, it's just a 6-pack of juice. So no one thought to take it back to use it in the chute. So putting it next to the chute, genius. Yes, perfect. Honestly, they should have just had it teetering on the edge so people could just push it forward. With all 3 of the coins in hand, we can solve the coin box, and I enjoy this puzzle to no end. This time around, you can flip the coins, making even more options available, and it's a slam dunk of a puzzle to figure out. We get a key and head to a certain room. I love how absolutely unfazed this guy is. In the original, Pyramid Head was a bit distressed getting fucking shot at, but here he just doesn't care. One detail they took out that I don't like is, first of all, they got rid of, like, the mannequin squirming as he, like, walks in. It's, like, way toned down here, which is, whatever. A little detail is when James would go in the closet in the original, he would look around, he found a magazine for the handgun, he'd load it, and then he'd shoot Pyramid Head, which he doesn't do in this one. And I was like, oh, that's cool. We're not wasting ammo in the original. And then here, I don't know if he lost ammo because I don't have the reticle thing on, so I can't tell. But it was just a neat little detail, and it's kind of obvious that they're censoring, even if a little bit already. So now, after he leaves, there's a red door in the apartment, and entering it will take us to the Otherworld Apartments. This is no longer a quick little section with a boss battle. It's now an entire gauntlet of fetching things and doing a certain puzzle. It took me as long to finish this as the regular area. There's just a lot to do. First off, it's majorly different as looks go, decrepit and rusty. Enemies are everywhere. It's so difficult to fight off the sheer amount of enemies with our limited options for damage. It got to the point I would memorize what to do and run through still to die, misclicking on a hole I needed to crawl through. I'm just gonna play a clip of what it ended up looking like when I decided to run away instead of engaging enemies. Yeah, it gets crazy. So it's not super large, but we need to do several puzzles, gaining the hour, minute, and second hand of a clock, and setting the times to open certain doors. You'll run around in a circle on this one section, getting a key, then a valve, then running to the area needing the valve to gain the first hand. So I adore every puzzle I saw here, from figuring out the clock to this stupid bird thing, and even the moth puzzle lock. They were simple, but gave me enough time away from enemies to really enjoy myself. The only time I wasn't enjoying myself was when I was getting gangbanged by 7 enemies in one room. Now I know how those mannequins felt with Pyramid Head. I just can't see it being feasible to fight off more than 2 enemies at once with only melee. Even with the handgun, the mannequins can just quick dodge like we do, wasting valuable ammunition. The further I get, the more combat heavy the title seems to lean. The lying figures also level up here. They now have a black leather appearance with some chains. They are much stronger and more resilient than their counterparts. They also explode in acid once you down them, so you have to move quick or you're taking some extra damage. At least James sticking his hand in a toilet is mandatory now, and we can see Angela again. If you didn't know, in the original, you don't have to stick your hand in a toilet. You just get like a code for it, for a safe. But yeah, they really want you to stick your hand in that fucking toilet.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah. I'm James.
Angela.
Angela. Okay. Look, I'm not sure what you're planning, but there's always another way.
Really? What's the point? It's easier just to run. Maybe it's all we deserve.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah, I'm James.
Angela.
Angela, okay. I don't know what you're planning, but there's always another way.
Really?
So in this scene of Angela, we get added context, like the dialogue is better, but it's, again, like it's different. Like it's too grounded in reality. I'm less feeling like, oh, what is this Silent Hill place? What is this strange atmosphere? And I'm more like, oh, okay, like these are just like people going through like a zombie apocalypse is kind of where I'm leaning towards. So what I do appreciate about the context, Angela and James learn more of each other than we originally saw in the first game, and it makes more sense for Angela to distrust James here as he's talking kind of crazy. There's an interesting thing here as we ascend this staircase. This is the original room that Pyramid Head was fought in. Neat. When we get the final hand for the clock, we can head to the boss of this area. And it's Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head this time around is not an obnoxious time waste. I had a blast with this battle as I dodged and ran him around the room, even getting a few melee hits on him. The invisible timer is still a thing, so you can run around not using any ammo on him till he leaves, but the combat is actually so fun that I found myself beating the crap out of him, using all my handgun ammo, and then even hitting him with the plank a few times. It felt really good. So the combat with standard enemies has me overstimulated. It's really refined when fighting bosses, almost the opposite of the original game. In the original, fighting enemies was fairly easy, but you would avoid them most of the time. You didn't want to fight them. You would just run around them or bait them into an attack and then go around them. And then when you would get to the boss fights, it would be the most tedious thing you'd ever do, as you were in a like teeny tiny square room and you'd have to run back and forth and shoot and then hit and then run around. So you get like one hit in every like 2 minutes. So it's much better done here. After Pyramid Head fucks off, we can follow suit back into Silent Hill. So already I feel like I'm off to a way better start than with the original game. There was no feeling of getting stuck that wasn't completely my fault because of my setting choices. I love the look of the apartments and the feeling conveyed in the characters of the game. We also get an exponentially larger area without it becoming too tedious to navigate, as well as the boss fight, which was a pure joy to overcome. The puzzles are pretty high class as well so far. My issues though, while the combat is much more modern and doesn't feel bad, it's not great, especially with how busted the mannequins are. They are just MLG levels of good when it comes to close combat, and running through or away is useless. In my future playthroughs, I had to eliminate enemies at certain points in order to either progress safely or to get through faster. It is in fact necessary to have combat in this game with regular mobs. The music is just copy-pasted from the original. I mean, not really. It's been rescored, but it's just the same music. It doesn't fit with this new modern aesthetic though. And some sound effects come off as cheap jump scares rather than unsettling background noises like the original had. Like, when you walk by the hour door, someone randomly bangs on it. That random whisper in the apartment room is no longer random. It does it every time you go in, and so on. I guess it lost a lot of the original sound appeal, but it still seems very standard to today's horror game. As I was playing the Otherworld apartment and fighting off hordes of enemies, my 13-year-old son walked in and said, "Hey, is this Resident Evil?" It is tough to make that mistake with the original games, as the vibe is completely different. I mean, that's my feeling on the apartment so far.
Hey, it was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
Maybe I did.
What's a little girl like you doing here anyway?
I don't know. What's a big dum-dum like you doing here anyway?
Hey, that's not very nice. Didn't your parents teach you any manners?
You didn't love Mary anyway.
What? Hey, wait!
It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
I don't know. Maybe I did.
What's a little girl like you doing here anyway?
Huh? Are you blind or something? You didn't love
Okay,
Mary
so
anyway.
Laura carries an extremely uncanny vibe. I'm not sure how, but I guess it's that she has like the face of an adult, but in the form of a child. I don't know. Every time she's on screen, that old otherworldly vibe comes back that the other characters have lost. Oh, and speaking of otherworldly, we get to meet Maria finally, and she is definitely more fleshed out in this game. So I was hearing a lot of complaints that like the women aren't very hot in this game, and okay, in Maria's case, she is hot to James. Like, have you seen Mary? She's as plain as the peanut butter and jelly sandwich I had to make for my 4-year-old a minute ago. This is exotic as fuck for milquetoast white boy James Sunderland. Also, is your argument that she was hot in the original game? Because, she's definitely not my type either. Listen, it's a new gen. Just get someone to mod in Amaranth and shut up about it. So I like Maria in this game. She has more to her than the original. She was just, flirty and kind of just attached with James, following him everywhere, not adding much to anything but being around. Like, you could describe Maria as a succubus, but in the original, like, she put her hand on, like, James's face, like, once or twice, and didn't really, like, coerce him at all. Here, though, she leads James on more and plays around with him a lot. You get a lot of interesting moments of banter depending on the places you visit with Maria, and in certain situations of casual gameplay. She even distracts James from his true mission a few times, which she didn't do in the original. Her character here is a massive upgrade. There's an area up ahead that was optional to go through in the original, being Jack's Inn. Heading here in the original game will just net you the key for the dog ending and a little reference to Silent Hill 3. Here, it's a required trek to progress, and you also can still find that Easter egg for Silent Hill 3. Now, I thought I was really clever as I noticed in the closet to this room Maria's original outfit. I was like, oh, hell yeah, Eagle Eye Viewer rewarded, let's go.
Hey, you think I'd look good in this one?
Now, I wish I didn't find it when I walked in, because this genuinely disappointed me. Like, they were shoving it in my face. Like, hey, remember this? Look at this. You see this? I bet you remember that. I would have appreciated it more if it just stayed in the closet and they let me notice it naturally. So we need the code for the safe downstairs, and this is another great puzzle added to the game, even if it requires math. Then Maria learns how strong mannequins are. Neat. Funny thing here, you can't kill Maria in this game. So in the original game, you could accidentally hit her, causing damage, and kill her. She's invincible to us in this game. I don't know why. That seems like a strange change to make, because she's not with us long anyway. And that actually affected the endings. Just across from here got me excited as I noticed the Baldwin Manor for Maria's Born from a Wish scenario. You can speak to Maria here, and she remarks that it feels like a bad memory. More like a new nightmare, since Konami will definitely release it as a useless pack with 2 more masks, and the Born from a Wish scenario will only be available on pachinko machines in Japan.
Strange. This should not be here.
That dialogue had me rolling. It's at this time that Silent Hill 2 Remake commits an unforgivable sin. You are forced to leave the plank behind and take the new pipe. Well, there goes my plank-only run. I'm not sure if the damage output is different, but we have a pipe now. In the original game, you were only required to get the handgun and the plank. You could get the pipe if you wanted. It's just sticking out of the hood of a random car. So you could get it. And the only reason I would get it in that game is to do the pipe sound effect noise whenever I would edit. Aside from that, I'm not using melee in that game. Like I'm gunning for the shotgun and then I'm using that for the rest of the time. So yeah, they force us to put down the plank and we have to take the pipe. Hashtag give me my plank back. We get to Heaven's Night and Maria opens the door for us. Unlike last time, she only has the one key, which is way less funny, but James still breaking his neck just to sneak a peek. In the original game, when this scene came up, she had 3 keys, so she'd get one out of her boot, one out of her pants, and then one out of her bra. And it was always hilarious because James would he'd break his fucking neck to try to look over when she was getting in her bra. I'm glad to see he does it here too, but he's definitely a lot less noticeable this time. And now we're in Heaven's Night. Heaven's Night, like everything else, is more expanded upon. You can look around, interact with posters, talk to Maria, and even mess with the pole. Maria plays more of a succubus role here, igniting James's guilt and forcing him off the quest when she can. This alcohol scene I also think is a nice touch. Like, notice how James stares at the glass? It kind of gives me dependency vibes, as he's like resisting the temptation to drink as best he can. In the original game, you walked through here, like that was it. You would just, they would make a whole habit of the scene, like, hey, look at this, I'm opening the door. Oh, look, we're in the strip club I work at, and that was it. Then you just, boop, you're right through, you're out. You're already out of there. You would hear the music for the place for 5 seconds and you're gone. So this is nice. Maria then drags us to the park. So this scene here, I don't know how to respond to. So Maria's telling us the story of the lady of the lake who would like hold the candle for her lover to come back, and like because they weren't supposed to be together, and he would always go visit her. She'd hold the light. He died at sea one day trying to get there, and she still held the light. I don't know if Maria is telling James that she will always be his light, or if it's just a literal reference to the light that guides you across the lake to the hotel. But, more Maria cutscene. I'm okay with this. Our next destination is a movie theater, a new location, and one where we meet Eddie and Laura as opposed to the original bowling alley. And like I said, Eddie is depicted great here visually. Instead of munching on pizza like he did in the original, he's already finished the pizza and is scooping ice cream with his bare fucking hands. This is criminal. So already, I've lost all sympathy for him, and he's a fucking psychopath. You cannot prove anything to me now. He is just a psycho. And I would like to mention, in the original, though, when you found him in the bowling alley with Laura, as he's eating the pizza, he is, like, sensually moaning as he eats the pizza. Which is great. And you got the pizza line from James, which is the greatest thing to come out of Silent Hill 2 original.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
I was visibly grossed out by him eating with his bare hands. We chase Laura around and out of the theater until we finally make it to the hospital. If we head to the stairwell, Laura dashes away from us and locks the 3rd floor off. The hospital is naturally a step more convoluted than the apartments, even off-rip. We have a puzzle to figure out for a padlock that requires looking at all the paintings in the lobby. Now, I honestly was stumped by this, and I had to look up where the solution was. As soon as I looked at it, and it said, oh, the posters in the hallway, I was able to get the code. It was fun. It was fun, but I had a tough time figuring out to look at these fucking posters. The key is, of course, for a basement full of Street Fighter 2 Turbo Champs, the mannequins. Our objective is to get a generator running and use the elevator to bypass all the locked doors. Just like the original, Maria parts with us here after feeling sick, leaving us to explore on our own a much bigger hospital. We'll meet our newest enemies here, the Bubblehead Nurse. Just like in the original game, they are nurses with weird masks and a long steel pipe. They aren't nearly as troublesome as the mannequins, but they still have a massive reach with those pipes. Compared to the apartments, the hospital has a vast amount of things to do. First off, every enemy type so far commingles here, meaning you will be up against everyone you've met so far. There's a lot of traversal between floors and sections as you find key items to progress and solve puzzles. I want to say I spent the most time in the hospital as it had the most to explore. It's a bit tedious being one large fetch quest. Get this key to get this x-ray, to get the mold spray, to clean the x-ray, then take it to a room to get a code, to open a door, and get one of the bands. It ends up doing that a lot, and the coveted hair and needle returns, but this time we get a medical tube, which makes much more sense. A change I was glad to see, and am probably the only one who cares about. The objective now is to get these 3 medical bands, which are at opposite corners of the hospital. The x-ray thing nets 1, draining the pool nets another, and the final one is down a series of drops. With all 3, we can use them to get a key, open an office, and finally solve a safe combination. I don't want you to think it's all bad though. I'd say the steps to achieve the final puzzle are the tedious part, and I'd rather do without those. But the final puzzles you do, like the safe, those were a lot of fun to figure out. Also, the x-ray puzzle, that was also fun. It was just the steps to get there felt more like padding than extended gameplay. Opening the safe gets us the rooftop key where we can head up, and funny enough, when I did this, I saw the bent fence and I said to myself, ooh, hold on, better check that out last.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Yeah, genuinely startled me. Good one, Team Bloober. You got me. Right around this time, I switched on the item reticle, and it was a game changer as I was finally able to see what I could interact with. I kind of wish I could set it to just doors and papers, since this did make a huge difference in my healing stock. I also dropped my difficulty to standard. All of the accessibility options are changeable at any time in game, so there's no repercussions. So, why does Laura have such big anime eyes? Is that what's weirding me out about her? Just like in the original, she tricks us, but this time we don't get boring feet dangling from the ceiling. We get an epic battle with the flesh lip. I felt good doing this fight as I dodged and was able to react in good time to the monster. As you damage it, the flesh lip gains more ability to fight back, first gaining a blade arm and finally dropping out of the ceiling to become the Tetanus Beyblade. The fight was a satisfying one, and I looked forward to every boss after this one, hoping they all improved like this. This ends our adventure in the Brookhaven Hospital, and now we must venture through the Otherworld Hospital. It looks amazing. This is peak Silent Hill visuals. James meets a new version of the Bubblehead enemy, the Otherworld kind that uses a knife instead of a pipe. This Bubblehead is much faster and can stab you with insane speed, taking you down fast if you aren't prepared. The hair box from the original game is our new obstacle, and we need to undo 3 locks to open it. 2 are numerical locks, and the last one is a key. Each lock has a chain leading to the area you need to go to learn the combos. The turning lock is my favorite one to have figured out. It was a big brain moment when I learned what the game wanted. The number pad is just get to the end of an area and get the code. And the one for the key was another fetch quest to find this thin thing to stab a dummy. I don't know, it just felt like a waste of time since James could just, punch the dummy and get the key. It's also a very dense enemy area, meaning you'll be fighting through this one to get that instrument. You have to do this section every playthrough as well. The other 2, though, you can memorize the combos, meaning you could skip them, but they're short sections, so you're not saving too much time getting to skip them. Opening the box reveals nothing. At least we got a button. The good old -1 button, because we can't have basements up in this bitch. Now it's off to the -1 floor with you. As soon as you enter the elevator, we get the old trick-or-treat quiz. It's the same thing, only this time Maria isn't with us, so we don't get the funny, and I'm going to play it right here, because it's hilarious.
Thanks for tuning in. See you again sometime. Bye-bye.
What was that?
The prize box is obtainable later, so you have to keep the answers in mind for longer. The basement is again full of mannequins just hiding around corners, but once you go through the fairly straightforward path, we find a ring and Maria! So not much changes in this scene. James is still like, you're okay, I guess. That's kind of cool, and then she freaks out with the anyway.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway?
So this part actually stays pretty true to the original. Just ahead, we find the fridge that the 2 open together, and we get the second ring. We can also open the quiz box, which is again just a ton of gear for us. Placing them on the lady of the door, we can head toward the exit of the hospital. Now we get another little added scene of Maria being worried about going down into this door, which is to set you up to feel guilty about dragging her along when she didn't want to go. A nice touch. I'm glad they added it. Now, this is maybe the only change I don't like completely. While I think it being a chase segment where Pyramid Head keeps up improves it overall, Maria stays ahead of James the whole time until we get to the cutscene and she teleports behind us. It kind of breaks the moment as they force her to the back to be inevitably killed. Just one blemish on an otherwise great rework. In the original, and I love saying that, I've said it so many times now, when you walked in this room, you didn't know Pyramid Head was chasing you. Like, you just heard his sword dragging. Like, they didn't make it a cutscene like, oh, there he is, better run, motherfucker. He's just like, oh, yo, you guys here too? Yo, let's vibe. And then he chases you. The bevy of issues that starts with this scene, though, especially for first-timers, is when he chases you, Maria's AI is dog shit, so she always gets caught before you get to the elevator. And if she gets caught, she dies. And when she dies, you have to do it over. So the big problem is first-timers would wait for Maria to catch up, which was a mistake. You need to just run. You need to book it to that elevator, forget about her. If she dies, she dies. You just have to restart and hope she doesn't get stuck next time. So they fixed that. I guess it mechanically works better in the new game, but visually, it kind of went backwards. Then we leave the hospital. I'm torn on how to feel about the hospital. I want to like it, but it feels like more busy work as opposed to extended content. The apartments did it a lot better, but as I said, the puzzles leading up to the final item were well implemented, and it was a joy to figure them out. But they definitely lost the luster that was presented with the earlier puzzles. Combat is just on 20 here. Enemies all over the place and swarming you in any given room. I found myself needing to kill everything around me just to be able to look around properly to figure out my next move, which became more busy work on top of finding stuff. I do love how it looked visually in both Silent Hill and Otherworld. The A game was brought in terms of appearance. The Fleshlip boss fight was just as good as the Pyramid Head fight and really emphasized the strength of the dodge mechanic when used properly. And of course, changing the hair to a tube, which I'm probably the only person who even cared about that. I guess after saying it out loud, I'm leaning more on the negative side, as on another playthrough, I just do not look forward to the hospital. Well, let's get out of here, and it's time to make our way towards... It's still pitch black and rusty, indicating we haven't left the other world. And now we get to chase Laura through a series of areas teeming with knife bobbleheads and hidden mannequins. Should you survive the ensuing chaos, you run past the Mandarin section, which is much the same as it does nothing and you run by it. You have to head again through Neely's bar where new text appears on the bar wall like in the original game. This time though, it's hard to miss since you are forced to go by it, which, I don't think I like it, because when you found this in the original game, it was like oh shit, oh my god, what is this? Where here it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm supposed to see that. I wonder what this means. It loses the impact by like kind of throwing it in our face. So it's fairly linear this next section, and you find a payphone that's ringing. No one answers, but the wrench and letter are here. The wrench this time opens a door instead of a box. Like in the original game, it was bolted to the ground, and that didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, James, you don't need the wrench, just pick it up and slide it out. They bolted it to dirt? What? So the wrench opens a door, and we can head to the park from earlier where we get another new scene with Angela. So this scene, I'm kind of glad it's here. It expands Angela's character, who we never really got much of. And I'm kind of torn on them expanding these characters. Like, I think a lot of the appeal of the original is that it was, thought-provoking, and they didn't give you much to chew on. They gave you just enough. Where here, they're letting us bite off a lot more, and it kind of kills the mystery. So the key to the Historical Society is in a box here, and it's not bolted to the fucking dirt this time, and that's our next destination. First, there's somewhere else we can visit. That's right, the bowling alley, and we get a sick reference.
This town's full of monsters.
How can you sit there and eat pizza?
It's entirely optional to visit here now, and you could do it earlier if you wanted. It becomes more important to visit on New Game Plus for a certain ending item, but that's about it. Going to the society, we open the front door, and there's more to examine this time around. There's a lot of Silent Hill lore on display, as opposed to the original, where there was just like a couple pictures. Now, I'm no expert, but there's a lot to read into here. I have played Silent Hill 2 a lot, so I know a lot about Silent Hill 2. I played 3 and 4 casually a couple times, and I am at the point in my life where I never want to play Silent Hill 1 again because of how old it is. Remake that next. You should have remade it first. What are we doing here? One thing that hasn't changed is the impossibly long descending hallway. It's unchanged even with the strange noise getting louder as you approach the bottom of it. One complaint visually is the camera. So like you don't really get to see the steps and down. You get to see like ahead of James. And it kind of like kills that angle of James endlessly walking into this hole that doesn't seem like it ends. So a little bit of a visual hiccup here. So same hallway, same endless hole. A touch I find great is that James doesn't dauntlessly jump in. So in the original game, he kind of like, it didn't seem like he was hesitating to jump in. He was just like, okay, better get ready to jump, like he was getting ready for it. Now you have to keep pressing X as if building up the courage to make the leaps, and he looks a little more like, oh my god, am I really gonna jump in this hole? What the hell? The bug room is the same, and I got insanely lucky with the code being 239, but trust me, this room bugs me every time. In the original game, you would walk in the room, pick up the key, your flashlight would die, and you'd have to pause to change the battery, which was like an ingenious design to me that they force you to pause the game so that they could load in all these bugs. Here they don't need to do that though, and they're just like, here's bugs. So it's still cool. It had a lot more originality originally. We jump into another hole after getting the key and find Eddie and his favorite corpse.
Just put the gun to their head and pow.
Eddie?
Oh, hi, James.
What happened here? Who was that?
I don't know. It just came at me.
Okay. So he attacked you, and you shot him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He made me do it.
Okay, calm down, Eddie. Any idea why he would do that?
I don't know. He came out of nowhere. Tried sneaking up on me in the dark. I heard footsteps, so I turned back and he was right there.
Killing a person ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head, pow. You killed him?
But it wasn't my fault. He made me do it.
Calm down, Eddie. Tell me what happened.
That guy, he had it coming. I didn't do anything. He just came after me. Besides, he was making fun of me with his eyes, like that other one.
Just for that, you killed him?
What do you mean, just for that?
Eddie, you can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
Oh yeah? Why not? Till now I always let people walk all over me. Just like that stupid dog. He had it coming too.
Eddie?
I was just joking, James. He was dead when I got here, honest.
So this scene is like the first time you really like tell the difference in how the voice acting was. Without the weird way the characters speak, it's definitely more apparent to me that Eddie did kill this man in the room. In the original, I was thinking, did he kill him, or is he just joking? Like, he could have just walked in here and this guy would have been dead. So here, it's almost like 100%. I'm unconvinced he was joking with how desperate he seems to explain himself here, and Eddie is painted more as a psychopath. And I think it all depends on how you look at it. Just the two games give two different perspectives. I think this game paints him more as a psychopath, where the other game painted it more as he was getting so bullied that he thinks the only way out is to kill people, where it's kind of flipped here. I think that's a good thing, though, because it's just it's something unique to grab a hold of out of this game. A bit further, we are officially inside the prison, and the prison's a mixture of every enemy so far, with a new variant that we haven't seen before, being mannequins that can now run along the walls like spiders. They are as annoying as regular mannequins, since now they can just tackle you from the void, even when you're at a full sprint. So the prison does a much more interesting take on the fetch quest. Instead of running around several times getting X to get Y to unlock Z, you have this like interconnected type path where only one item is needed from each section to solve one puzzle. It feels less tedious this way, but it still can leave you weary having to do it on multiple runs. So the first weight is in the church nearby. Once you get it, head to the courtyard and you can place the weights on a scale. You need to do this to open 4 different doors, one at a time of course, in a certain order. First one is the snake door. This part is teeming with the spider mannequins. Head to the end, do the electric chair puzzle, gain the weight, and make your way back out. It's not as easy as I made it out to be. You have several different routes on the way back out, but you gain the armory key before making your way back to the beginning area, where we can now get the hunting rifle. And I didn't say it before, I guess I forgot. You could get the shotgun in the hospital. I didn't mention it because, like, you could miss these in the original game. Like, you could easily walk by them and not get these weapons. Here, they're kind of like, no, where are you going? Where are you going? You need this now. Like, I couldn't even tell you where the rifle is in the original game. I never bothered getting it, because once I get the shotgun, I'm set. Here, though, it's right here in this, like, central hub as soon as you walk into the prison. And when they give you the armory key, like, it's hard to miss this. You have to get this key, and then you can get the rifle. So, and yeah, the original only had the mandatory weapons of plank and handgun, which is, the same here. You could just go through the whole game with the handgun. You don't have to pick up the shotgun, or you don't have to pick up the rifle. You can choose not to, but it's a lot easier to find on the path. Anyway, the next section is the Ox. More spiders in a hallway of cells. You have to unlock a cell, crawl through to a restroom area, where you gain another weight, and then you have to run through a mess of enemies. This was the only time the game felt like it was telling me to run away instead of fight. This area is massive, and there are many places to dip from foes, being holes in the walls or partitions to vault over. This part solidified to me that evading was a thing of the past, and combat is the new norm unless they give you a giant area to operate in for the rest of the game. After running through this insane asylum, we move on to the boars section. This one isn't too special, and you just go through the area. You type sick on this typewriter, get the weight, and leave. The final door is the Dove. It's my favorite of the areas by far. There are only a few enemies to fight, but the atmosphere here comes close to what you would get in the original game. Both the occult jail cell and the artist jail cell are here with the largely, the contents are largely the same as they were. You even hear the guy say ritual when you go in the occult cell. You open a few locked cells via button, and inside one of them is another weight. James gets locked in when you pick it up, and something bangs on the door, and when you leave, nothing is around. So this put me more on edge. Actually, this is a good reference. So if this happened in the original game, like, I wouldn't want to leave this room. I would stay in the room with my gun pointed at the door, waiting for something to come in. Here, though, I'm ballsy. Like, I can just hit things in the face. So I run right outside, and I'm like, where are you, asshole? Let's fight. So I think that's a good comparison of the mind state this game puts you in as opposed to the original game. So nothing's around, and just like that, we're out of here, and using all the weights, we can make the statue release a lever that we then use on this platform behind it. This brings back my favorite puzzle from the original game, the noose one, where we need to find out who is innocent and drop their noose. Now, I don't know if it's me or what, but this wasn't as good as the old one was. I might have gotten a bad draw since the solution is any one of a random pool to draw from, but my answer was someone who stole for the sake of being able to live. So, like, they were poor and they had no food, so they stole. And I feel like that conflicts with a lot of the themes in this game. Angela? I guess if you think the crime is justified, it's all right. I'm not positive, but this one left me feeling empty once I got my answer. I couldn't figure out which one it was because of this, so I just started pulling nooses randomly. And if this is intentional, then great job, Team Bloober, because it made me laugh really loud. But on my third wrong noose pull, the game immediately crashed. If you pull the wrong one, it drops you into this den of enemies. But by the time they get up from being in their, like, on the ground state, you can already be at the ladder to get out and just pull another one. So the consequence is, like, non-existent. I think in the first game, when you pulled the wrong one, it's been a while since I pulled the wrong one, but flex. You pull it down, and I think the door locks, and then you have to fight a bunch of enemies. Yeah, no. You pull it down, you run to the other room, the door locks, and then you have to fight an enemy, I think. I'm not even gonna look it up. I'm gonna tell myself that's exactly what you do, and that's it. As you can surmise, the prison is relatively short, but the prison and Labyrinth seem to be intertwined into like one section, but I'm gonna treat them separately. There isn't a lot to expound on here, but just reinforce. I like Eddie's subtle changes in dialogue. I think they make it more clear what his intentions are, but I feel like it's giving more he's a complete psychopath vibe instead of like bullied kid who was bullied into the actions he's done, which is what the original vibe kind of was. Now he's just like I kill people for real. The branching paths feel more meaningful than the random fetch quests. Like, if I had to explain it, when I say branching paths, it's like when we did the hospital, it was like, oh, you start here, then go here, then go here, then go here, then go here. You got the item. Now you need to go here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then it just had you like in random places all over the place. But the way that the prison does it is it's kind of like it loops back around. So it's kind of interconnected. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but I just enjoy that design a little better than I did the hospital. I appreciate that we can get the rifle without going out of the way. The atmosphere is foreboding, but not quite on par with the original. As we progress, it does get closer. The combat in this section was much more pleasing when the pathways were wider, giving room to both fight or avoid if needed. I didn't like the changes made to the news puzzle. The solution is random, and I think one of the answers you get is a really good one, while the others are just people justifying their own actions, which is conflicting with the themes of the game itself. Overall, it does well, and it's one of my favorite sections. It's also the easiest to just run through on New Game Plus when compared to all the others. But, enough about that. Let's jump down this last hole. One last descent brings us into the Labyrinth, where we find a newspaper article about Angela's father and a door covered in papers.
Please. I'll be good, I promise. Tell him I'll be good, please.
Angela? Angela, it's me.
No. Please. Daddy!
Meet Abstract Daddy, possibly the best boss in the entire sequence of this battle is pure cinema. In a way, it harkens back to PT as you walk down hallways that constantly loop into the same one, with Abstract Daddy appearing or the rooms just falling apart as you progress. At a point, the apartment warps into a strange type of room with fleshy, stitched together walls, and there are these TVs with audio of a man yelling with pieces missing of his dialogue. Eventually, all the walls are fleshy, and large gears and pistons are pumping all around the room as the machines run non-stop until you enter the final battlefield. Now at this part, I was out of ammo, and I had to rely on the combat, and I managed to win without taking a single hit, and it felt great. This may have been the single greatest moment of the entire remake for me.
Okay, Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not. It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
The Abstract Daddy is just as grotesque as you remember, and this battle that lasted maybe a minute or two in a small room of the original became so much more. When I want a remake of a game, this is what I expect from it. So in the original, you walk into the room, she screams, "No, Daddy," and then it attacks you, and you're just in this small square room with Abstract Daddy. You gotta run from each side and shoot it like every other boss. I'd say the only difference is the pistons in the walls that are moving in and out, which are extremely symbolic, And in this game, they don't do that. Those pistons just aren't moving. But there's also like the giant fucking piston right above it that's running. So I feel like they just changed it to a less... I'm not sure if I'd call it censorship, but it just seems like they changed it to just a different visual overall, I guess. I think I prefer the symbolism that the pistons and the wall give. I think it's still clear what they're trying to convey here. So, again, more clear dialogue is used in the cutscene that ensues, painting a clearer picture of both Angela and James, and the fight clears, it paints a much more clear picture of Angela and her father. Once we move on from here, there are two things. First is this Maria cutscene.
Chases to the elevator and then...
James, what are you talking about?
Just before. Don't you remember?
James? Honey? Did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful.
So, if you'll notice, I played those scenes right next to each other. They're almost identical, frame for frame. And I love it. I think it's done very well. The only issue, I think, is the lighting. So if you look at the original, the lighting is like framed very dark. And while I like Maria's character more in this game, I think this specific moment is more symbolic the way the original looks. It's kind of dark. Like, yeah, you want to save Maria, but do you want to save Maria? I don't know. She's kind of looking a bit fucking creepy right here. Well, in this one, she's like super bright and perky. It's like that mod they made to take all the fog out of Silent Hill. It like loses all of its visual luster. Now, it does get even better here, though, as our good friend the Head Cube is back with much more of a purpose. This time around, we need to traverse 3 different areas using the Head Cube. We're not looking for any specific items, just literal progress is what we're looking for, I guess. I mean, there's nothing to gain in each of these areas. There's nothing to get but progress, yeah. The first is a grid floor full of mandarins where they are in fact now a problem. In the original, these guys were a joke. They showed up twice and you ran past them, they couldn't do shit to you. But here, they are put to work as their shrieks will stop you in your tracks and they home in on you with this tendril. The only way to beat them is to damage both of their hands until they fall into the void. Unfortunately, I don't have the ammo for this, so I need to run past them. James must find 3 things here to move on: a lighter, a wick, and lighter fluid. Using these, we can light this sheet, fashioned into rope, on fire, creating a hole that we must again jump into, which will bring us back to the rotating cube. Finding the next combination takes us to an empty area with many descending ladders. It resembles the original game's Labyrinth in how it operates, with climbing up and down several ladders, but the main attraction is here. The Pyramid Head section is no longer a choice. In the original game, this was an entirely optional area. You didn't even need to see it. You would go down, there would be a couple of mandarins patrolling the floor, and Pyramid Head would chase you with a spear. If you would go to his room, you would get your hands on the giant knife. His iconic knife that you could then use to fight with. Really sick. I loved using that knife, even though it was impossible to use in a useful way. Now this time it is fucking mandatory, as you have to run from him and he chases you down with the giant knife in hand. You have to get to this room where unfortunately we can no longer get the giant knife since he's still using it. Using a secret passage, we can get to the wire cutters, but we must run through the area one more time, and this time Pyramid Head is strangely absent. Cut the wires and descend the ladder, and suddenly, oh, there he is. He's right behind us, watching us get away. I called this moment. When I went to go get on this ladder, I was like, he's going to be right behind us. And he is. If you get up and walk to him, he'll get... It's so funny. If you climb up the ladder and walk up to him, I did this on a New Game Plus, he'll just be like, fuck you, and then he'll just walk away. I did not chase him after that because I'm not that ballsy. Into another hole and back to the cube, we have one last area left. This one goes from oppressive to aggressive, as we fight multiple foes in an area similar to the apartments. We have to face every foe in a series of gauntlets room to room before we can move on. Combat emphasis. Like the prison, there is room to breathe, as we can hop barricades or run through doors to avoid damage. The enemies progressively get tougher until we face the final challenge, Pyramid Head, in an obnoxiously tight hallway. Doing this battle, I sunk every bit of ammo into him, got good at dodging, all to no avail, as he ended me in a measly 2 hits. But by total accident, when he backed me into a corner, I figured it out. This wall of legs that's here will separate as he gets close, because they're afraid of him. I mean, what pair of legs wouldn't be afraid of him? You see the shit he did in the original game? Meaning we just need to get back and back away slowly while the passage opens up and he chases us. Once at the end, the passage will collapse on Pyramid Head and we don't need to use a single bullet. Running ahead, we make it to the room Maria is in, to find once again she's fucking dead. The moment is more touching, with James showing much more emotion than he originally could, and then we find it. The giant knife. My favorite weapon, but in an otherwise perfect section, it had to have one glaring flaw, and that's that the giant knife is now only used for this specific event. It's no longer a weapon. A sad, sad day for the fans. The graveyard is our next destination near the familiar names, and the bottom of our grave waits Eddie. Now, once again, all the corpses, like in the original, are James. The changes to the scenes here are great, with James defending himself from the ever more wild Eddie, and, okay, I said great. I wrote great, but I don't know how I feel about it after watching the original. So in this one, James defends himself punching Eddie, and then Eddie goes in the next room where we fight him. In the original game, Eddie kind of goes off, has a bit of a psychotic break, and he shoots at James, and you fight him in this room to chase him into the other room. I'm not sure which I like more. I feel like I could take either of these scenes. They don't really bother me either way. I could take either one and be fine. Chasing him into the freezer, we engage in another boss battle. While the battle is more interesting than it was, it hasn't changed from the original, and it is worse for that. Eddie is like a god here, as he runs fast and knows exactly where we are. In the second phase, he obscures our vision, but himself has perfect accuracy. And in the final leg of the fights, the meat starts moving, and we get to finish off Eddie. The one thing is that it still doesn't take many hits to finish him off when compared to the monster bosses we face. But what was once a high point in the old game is now setting a low bar. And, oh, hold on, when you kill Eddie, James doesn't make any remarks. So, a comparison here, James in the original game will get, he'll get, oh my god, I killed a human being, what the fuck is wrong with me? And he kind of laments in it. When here, he just looks at his hands. Now, this is interesting for a different reason, because he does the same thing with his hands that he does in the very beginning of the game, which points to something if you know how the game ends. That's the end of the Labyrinth section, and oh boy, on every playthrough, I dread this part of the game, but not in a bad way. The Labyrinth takes me back to that same dreadful and eerie atmosphere that keeps me from playing the original Silent Hill 2 multiple times. This section kind of exemplifies most aspects of improvement a remake can make on its source material. The Abstract Daddy boss fight is phenomenal, easily the peak of this title. While there are only 4 enemy types in the game, this section utilizes them all in a worthwhile way. The rotating cube is always welcome to see again, and I love that it gets way more use this time around. The Maria scene being almost exactly the same gave me chills, but my only issue is it looked the same, but it wasn't the same. Like, if you compare them side by side, Maria's like more dimly lit. Like, there's just like this dark foreboding, and I guess that's just the whole game that looks like that. But in this one, it's just bright and like kind of more chipper, and you're just like, okay, well, I guess I gotta save Maria, as opposed to like, should I save Maria? Pyramid Head even gets more use in this game, which I was afraid would have a negative effect. Like, Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII Remake, like, Cloud goes to take a piss in the stall, and then Sephiroth's just like, I'm here. It's me.
Show me your...
But he was implemented in only a few extra places here that all had my anxiety at its peak. While it was close to perfection, there were a few rough spots here. Not getting the giant knife was a massive disappointment. and the Eddie fight just lost its fun. It was probably always bad, but when all the combat in the original sucked, it was like a shiny turd in a sea of crap. Here, though, it shows itself for how bad it is. Otherwise, I enjoy this section as I dread the moment I get to it in any given run. It does a remarkable job improving the original formula. Can the finale live up to this expectation? So, Lake Toluca lies just ahead, and a simple rowboat, too. James rows toward the only light visible through the dense fog where we shore at the Lakeview Hotel garden. It's eerily peaceful as we approach. The garden itself is beautiful, and almost as if it's been stored in a time capsule with how pristine it's looking, even though there's nobody here to take care of it. A sign by the front door says, "Welcome back," almost like it's speaking directly to James, and I really like this plaque. I mean, I noticed it when I walked in, so why wouldn't I like it? The hotel's interior is nice. Just like before, it's comforting, and that same note and key wait at the reception desk. In the cafe, we hear a piano. This scene with Laura is largely the same. The main difference being that she hands you an empty envelope instead of just remarking that it's missing, and of course the dialogue is more clear. If you notice her drawing as well, it started out as a bunny being chased by a wolf, and now ends with a bunny and a friendly dog, perhaps representing James's growth or how she's feeling towards James over her exposure to him. After she runs off, it's time for us to explore as well. Oh, and you can play Mary's theme on the piano. Well, it's not Mary's theme. I forget what it's called, but it's whenever we talk about Mary. A nice touch. The hotel's not as cramped as the apartments and not as lengthy as the hospital. It stays in a decent middle ground throughout. We have a basement, first, second, and third floor, as well as the garden from before. But the hospital runaround for items is back in full effect. All we need is 3 figurines, but it's a much more padded out task. You can go after any piece first, but no matter what, they all require a key to start the quest. Room 107 takes us out to a garden, which at the end has a fireplace key for the 3rd floor, and using it will get you the Cinderella box. But it will put you in close quarters with a Mandarin. And I heard that this was, people are saying this is the closer from the Silent Hill 3 game. I thought it was just a Mandarin. How do you, what's the difference? How do you tell what the difference is? This is a Mandarin, right? It's much easier to fight in this state, and with so much room to dodge, it's taken down easily, and we have our first box. The second one is possibly the easiest, only requiring an apple. It's a literal puzzle of fitting mirror shards together, placing an apple, and gaining the Snow White box. And the third is the longest one to get, just like the original game, but much longer. To get it requires a multitude of puzzles to be solved and items to be obtained. First, we solve this book placement riddle to access a hidden room with a code-locked briefcase. To learn the code, we need to find a light bulb, red paint, and a can opener. Combine all these and use it on the wardrobe. This gives us our answer and the employee elevator key. Yes, it is not over yet. Going to the elevator, we need to leave everything behind and descend to the first floor that is patrolled by more Mandarins. With no way to fight, we must find our way to each objective in order to move forward. First, we need to find 3 gemstones, plug them into this board, and get a code for a safe that gets us the basement key and a tape. Then, in this hall, also patrolled by Mandarins, we sneak by and find a valve. Take the valve, shut off this steam, walk into the room, walk back out and grab that valve because you need it again, buddy. Go forward and finally obtain the goddamn Little Mermaid box. Which, in the original game, it was just sitting on a fountain as soon as you got off the boat. You have to do this every run, but at least knowing the codes ahead of time significantly shorten the workload since you just end up needing the valve. I do like that they have the Mandarin patrolling here, because in the original it was just like a couple of mannequins, and you could just run by them, no problem. We then head back up, get our items, and we can finally solve the music box. Now, I was really caught up in the dumb fetch quests that I almost didn't notice. The hotel is slowly deteriorating as we find each figurine. The puzzle for this I never figured out, I just got lucky. You need to wind each figure to go into their place at certain times, and just testing it out, I worked it in one try. It was a huge bummer because I wanted to figure it out myself. Like the key turns, because I was playing on hard, were absurdly low for each one. I think it was like 3, 1, 2 or something, and it was like, oh, you did it. Good job, asshole.
I killed her.
Now, I'm not sure why James tells an 8-year-old he killed his wife, but here we are. If I had a nickel for every time he did that, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but strange that it happened twice. As James sits in the chair and laments, the hotel warps around him into the other world as Mary calls to him on the radio. This part will have us wandering through a collapsing hotel nearly void of all enemies. It's just a straight shot to an elevator that takes us to the flooded basement. Wading slowly through the water, there is a there's a bright light behind a door. Now, this scene is a lot similar to the original. The dialogue is more clear, as I've been saying the whole time. My biggest issue here is we can no longer watch her ascend all the way, as the game forces us to leave with no way to go back. In the original, when she would ascend the staircase, you could watch her disappear. And I feel like that was insanely symbolic. It contributed to the appeal of the game to be able to make that choice to watch her ascend. And they kind of took that away from us. Not a great change. Not a great change. It's a simple one, but it's the little things that made Silent Hill 2 a fucking masterpiece, which is why I'm so critical over these little moments. Angela's arc is now over, and James is nearing its conclusion. There are enemies in the preceding area, but they don't do anything. It's almost as if they have no power to fight, and I still kill the fuckers, though. Then we make our way to that dreaded boss fight from the original game. Now, I'm going to go on a rant here. The original game's combat was trash. And no one will fight you on that. The original game's combat was so bad that literally everyone agrees that we shouldn't do it. We've all agreed as a species that we just need to keep going. Just run past enemies. We don't need to fight anything. Everything's long and just cumbersome to be able to do, which, you avoid it. The culmination of that, though, is the double Pyramid Head fight. It's so bad. Where you're running around in a small room with other enemies, like, they couldn't really do much to you. Like, they'd hit you sometimes, you'd run into them. These guys, they'll fuck you up. They will fuck your day up. They will fuck you and your day and its ass. And they will kill you a lot. If you only have melee at this point, good fucking luck. Did you pick hard? Well, you're going to have to hit them like 60 times before you win. It's obnoxious, and it's a bad boss fight. Hugely symbolic, but goddamn, it's bad. So in this game, before we get there, if you save, you will notice that James no longer looks forward at the player. He's now looking away after the Angela cutscene. This is the only thing they do with the red square save. I was really I saw Pyramid Head at the ladder when when you went down the ladder and you saw him there. I was really hoping that at some point, Pyramid Head would just be behind us, and you'd go out and he wouldn't be there just one time. That didn't happen. But I think this is a good moment, that him looking away from the camera. It conveys a lot of things with only one act. The emotion is palpable here, and there's a reason this scene was used so much for the promotion. Kind of diluted the effect of it because it was in so many goddamn trailers, but it's a damn good resolution to James's journey. And the culmination of what I was talking about with, them showing a lot of emotion in this game. It's really good. You really feel his despair and kind of his empowerment here. Now, we fight the 2 Pyramid Head bosses, and where there was once an obnoxious fight that I wanted to end as soon as possible, we now have an epic battle for James to free himself from his own doubts. While still not as good as the Abstract Daddy fight, and taking hits from the 2 as easy as they progressively get faster, it doesn't feel nearly as bad as the first time. The room will crumble apart as the 2 take damage until ultimately James doesn't need them anymore. How do I know he doesn't need them anymore? Because the achievement told me. Thanks, achievement. The achievements are just James's thoughts. That's what I've learned. We take those 2 eggs and place them to find that hallway where Mary speaks her last words to us. Then, we ascend the railway to find Mary and her bed. So this fight's kinda, I don't know, it's a lot like the Flesh Lip fight. The first phase is largely the same as it was, but with better movement. In the second, we have to fight in the dark as Maria pokes in and out from the ceiling the whole time. I think you're supposed to use the whole area, running in a circle, but I didn't do that. I just ran back and forth in this little spot, so when she spawned, I would be able to see her, and then I would just smack her in the face a couple times, and I don't think she ever hit me here. And then the final phase, where she also turns into a tetanus Beyblade, just like the Flesh Lip. She gains intense mobility, teleporting around and jumping half the stage to hit us with the metal frame surrounding her, but it's only a matter of time until she's on the ground, and we deliver the final blow, which ends Silent Hill 2 Remake. Kind of a lackluster final battle. Anyway, shoot that bitch in the face. So there isn't much to say about the hotel. It's just outright better than the original game, in my opinion. There's a lot more to do, a lot more to pick up on. The scenes largely stay the same, while they just add more to the hotel to accomplish. The patrolling mandarins are a great touch. The bosses are better. I'd say the final boss is meh, but a huge improvement over the original game. What they did with the save thing of James looking away is exactly what I would expect from the original Team Silent. I wanted to see Pyramid Head, and that's the easy answer. James looking away it's those little moments that made the original game what it was. Other than that, the cinematics mostly stay the same, which works, making the hotel, Labyrinth, and prison great updates to this game. Well, it's only really over if you're a quitter and don't want to get any of the 8 endings. And that's right, there are 8 this time. 6 similar to the original and 2 brand spanking new ones. To get those, you're going to need to do a New Game Plus. This time around, the unlocks are different. First of all, we get new filters. Ooh, there's a bunch of gameplay filters that pixelate, make everything red, or look like a Telltale game. It's honestly neat and a welcome addition to spice up any new playthrough. I prefer the green filter as it reminds me of the Silent Hill 2 North American box art, which terrified me as a child, so I had to hide it in my closet. You also get dun da 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 the chainsaw. This time it's an infinitely more useful weapon as it one-shots every mob in the game, and is very quick to use unlike its clunky counterpart in the original. Oh, and James will do the Texas Chainsaw reference. That's nice. With the chainsaw being so powerful, it's no wonder they got rid of the hyper spray. It's sad to see it go, but I never cared for it much, seeing as how it was only practical for boss fights if you got the perfect rank one. And only like 10 people got perfect rank, let's be real. My casual playthrough took me 15 hours and 19 minutes, while I killed 260 enemies. Like, in the original game, I could get to the end with only killing like 50 enemies. On my first New Game Plus, 6 hours and 9 minutes. And that's even longer than a casual playthrough of the original. I ended up killing more enemies at 269 this time, but with a one-shot chainsaw, it was a no-brainer. It was like, oh, do I avoid these enemies that I can't avoid, or just put a fucking chainsaw in their head? Now, another good thing about this game is that you can achieve multiple endings on the same playthrough. In the original, you had to go back and play the game 6 separate times. Most of the time, you could save at one certain point, but you're still playing through most of the game to get these endings. Here, you can achieve multiple endings on the same playthrough. Aside from the original 3, which are the Leave, In Water, and Maria endings, because those require separate conditions to be met on a point system. So you want to do those 3. But I did the Leave ending, the Maria ending, thank God, because Maria ending is still hard to get. It's even harder to get because you have less situations to proc that point system. And the last one I got was In Water, and on my In Water ending, I managed to get the other 4 endings along with that. Sorry, 5 endings, not 4. They're very tastefully done. I won't spoil them here, even though I've already spoiled the entire fucking game for you, but they are vast improvements on the source material, and the UFO ending is fucking top tier, and it had me rolling. It was so good. So, the original question I asked was, is it a good remake? And it's harder to answer that than I thought, but the remake does bring a lot of good to the table, but also a decent bit of bad. It's almost like the two games traded off their weaknesses and strengths. I guess I'll start with what I don't like in the remake, and the first is the combat, which I didn't like the original's combat, but it made sense outside of those boss fights. Where in the remake, the combat is only good inside of the boss fights and tedious or doesn't work outside of them. When we're given an area to move, it's highly fluid, but when we're constricted to tight hallways, the mannequins just punch your face in before you can aim your shotgun. And they're everywhere. They're everywhere, man. They're behind every corner. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. There's a mannequin sitting there, and it's just gonna come out and get a cheap shot on you. Most of the enemies work well, but it's just those mannequins that seem like unfair assholes most of the time. Half of each of the puzzles is just running around, fetch questing 2 or 3 times as much as the original game did. While the original had a lot of grabbing items and placing them, it was also only 4 to 8 hours in length, meaning it was never a huge endeavor. This game can be 10 to 20 for a first timer. A lot of it comes off as padding, and the final big hit for me is the atmosphere. It's dead. The remake does not accomplish the task that the original stumbled its way into. That otherworldly feel is gone, and yeah, while we got the same exact music and sound design, it just doesn't work in this space. I played these 2 games back to back, and the dread, the uncanny vibes, are just nearly non-existent in the remake, with the only section that comes close being the Labyrinth, which almost does it solely on visuals and Pyramid Head use. The music is still great, but it's old. It was made for an old game. They just don't match up well. We went from survival horror to action horror. It plays more like Resident Evil and less like Silent Hill, which Silent Hill's distinguishing factor was that it did not play like Resident Evil, as it was different enough. It's turned itself into an average horror game instead of the enigmatic masterpiece we loved. It also leaves a lot less questions to be answered. Where the original left us with a lot of food for thought, and you can draw your own conclusions or be confused by the way things were said, the added dialogue and context I praised earlier now point towards more clear endings, defeating that post-game theorizing. One thing that adds a more cryptic lore to the game, and that's the memories. I never mentioned it while I was talking about the sections, but you can find references to the original game, like specific locations and puzzles, so it could be either an Easter egg for us players, or a hint that James never left Silent Hill, and he's stuck in this sort of limbo, repeating the games over and over again, but I think it's more Easter egg. Exploring Silent Hill is a treat. It's not huge by any means, but there's a lot to discover, and you're rewarded with items or lore for going off the beaten path. The combat's still a vast improvement, even though it gets repetitive, and most of the boss fights are spectacular. I absolutely enjoyed confronting the monster bosses. The puzzles that mirror the original game are fantastically recrafted and a joy to solve, except the noose puzzle. And the visuals. If anything, a AAA game has to get the visuals right, and they do it here. While the original gave us the perfect sound design, I think the remake delivers perfect visuals, as we can see the world of Silent Hill decay and rust around us. Every location gets a breath of new life, which is a sight for sore eyes. And the endings are in the best form they can be. Extremely cinematic and breathtaking. So I will say that, yeah, I think Silent Hill 2 Remake is in fact a good game, but is it better than the original? I don't think so. I don't think they even compare to each other. Both of these games provide something vastly different from the other. The original game lends itself to more creepy atmosphere and vague, interpretable lore. It's more psychological, while the new game lends itself to creepier visuals and outright scarier moments, becoming more of an action horror game. So in the end, it comes down to what you specifically want in the moment. Unsettling and uncomfortable vibes, or scary and knee-jerk reactions. I still think Silent Hill 2 2001 is a masterpiece, even if it was completely on accident, with the absolute perfect storm of visuals, weird voice acting, and perfect sound design. It accomplishes a lot. While the remake is more of a great job, guys, this might be as close as we can modernize this game. I highly recommend playing Silent Hill 2 Remake at a reduced price. I don't think it's worth $70. Like, I'd probably buy this for $40, maybe. But I also recommend treating the original as a prequel and refreshing yourself with it before playing the remake. While the theory crafting is gone, I think the joy you can get from this game as a Silent Hill 2 original fan is playing that game, this game, and comparing those two as opposed to theory crafting from just remake. But yeah, that's about it. That's one man's opinion on the Silent Hill 2 games. I really don't know what happened. I meant for this to be like a 20-30 minute video to talk about the games, and all of a sudden, I wrote over 20,000 words in 24 hours. Please send help or subscribe to the Patreon. Team Bloober did a good job. I know it couldn't be perfect, but it's damn better than most AAA games tend to be lately. If you watched this far in the video, then bless your soul, why? I truly appreciate you reaching the end of this long summation. Please let me know your thoughts on the games in the comments. And if I forgot anything, please let your opinion be known. Don't just keep it to yourself. We love expressing ourselves here. But that's it though, guys. My hands, they were cramping from writing that script, so I'm gonna go sleep for about a week. If you liked the video, then express that any way you would like to show me you did. And hey, if this does well, maybe I can rip on Final Fantasy VII Remake next. That's all, guys. Remember, don't go out into the fog. Stay cozy. See ya.